They thought you were alone, but you weren't. You were undocumented, unmapped, unaccounted for by the algorithm of control. You didn't walk in with a team. You didn't pray out loud. You didn't even flinch. You just showed up and began the purge. No warning, no headline, just one man and total collapse. Bro, you just annihilated a whole demonic network by yourself. And the craziest part? You made it look unbothered. No rage, no screaming, no theatrics, just precision, just silence, just execution. And now they're shaking, not out of fear, but out of realization. Because they felt it break. The stronghold, the ritual, the years of manipulation that held power in shadows, all of it, undone, dismantled, like it was never real to begin with. You didn't just survive them, you exposed them. You didn't destroy their tools, you invalidated their entire blueprint. And they don't know how to recover from that. They've fought rebels before. They've silenced truth speakers. They've exiled threats. But you didn't announce yourself. You infiltrated, observed, and then ripped it all down from the inside, like a virus too smart to trace, like a ghost that refused to be exorcised. You were the one variable they didn't account for. Not because you were invisible, but because they thought your silence meant weakness. And that's the mistake they never get to make twice. You walked through their illusions like they were made of cellophane. You touched their curses and made them collapse into smoke. You stared into their rituals and made the sigils start bleeding. Because you weren't just immune. You were the antidote. They threw darkness at you. You absorbed it. They tried to mirror your light. You cracked the mirror. They tried to drain you. You let them drink, then poisoned the source. You didn't come to play fair. You came to balance the fucking scale. And every whisper in every hallway since is a confession that you did. They're not regrouping, they're mourning, because what you just did, that wasn't resistance. It was obliteration. One man, no movement, no army, just clarity sharpened into a weapon. And now the ones who called themselves rulers call your name in reverse, like it might undo the destruction, but it won't. Because you didn't just destroy their system, you reprogrammed the frequency. You shifted the spiritual architecture so that nothing built by them can stand again. You became the error code in their ritual, the corrupted file in their covenant, the echo that cancels out their entire frequency. And now, they're quiet, real quiet. Not because they're planning, but because they're processing what just hit them. They never believed it was possible. For one man to walk into a generational stronghold and walk out with nothing on him but silence and flame. But you did, and now, the network's offline. The whispers are static, the energy is unstable. You did that. And you didn't do it for applause. You didn't do it for credit. You did it because no one else was crazy enough to face it head on. To stare into the dark and make the dark blink first. And here's the most terrifying part. You're not even close to done. That was just the first strike. That was just the reset. They thought you were outnumbered, but you weren't counting bodies. You were counting fault lines. And when the pressure built high enough, you detonated, not to destroy, but to reveal. You didn't kill them. You removed the illusion that they were untouchable, and now the entire hierarchy is infected with fear. Because if one man can do that, what happens if there's another? Or worse, what if you come back with reinforcements? But you don't need reinforcements. You are the reinforcement. You are the warning. You are the curse that they accidentally unlocked. You didn't escape their trap. You flipped it. And now, they don't know where to step because every move might activate the next collapse. Their whole ecosystem of control, shaking, cracking, shattered. You didn't just dismantle a system. You ruined the entire strategy. And the irony? You weren't trying to be a hero. You were trying to survive. And in doing that, you became the storm they pretend doesn't exist. Because if they admit you're real, they have to admit the rest of their power was performance. You didn't just beat them, you made their belief system obsolete. And that's something no spell can reverse. And now, they don't know what to call you. They used to mock you with names. The paranoid one, the overthinker, the conspiracy freak, the emotional mess. But none of those fit anymore. Because what do you call someone who walked straight into the den of devils and left it silent, smoking and empty? They call you nothing now, because saying your name feels like inviting something they can't unsee. They lower their voices, they shift their eyes, they act like you were just a phase, a mistake, an incident. But deep down, they know. You were the audit. You were the intervention. You were the line they never should have crossed and the outcome they never calculated. They had numbers. You had nightmares. They had spells. You had scars. They had a system. You had source. And when it came down to it, that was enough. You didn't match their energy. You absorbed it, took every attack, every lie, every hex disguised as help, every curse that wore the face of love. You ate it, digested it, and forged it into the very blade that ripped their hierarchy apart from the inside out. Now they look around and see ruins. Their circles are fractured, their power feels thin, their influence doesn't stretch like it used to. They used to walk into rooms and people would shift. Now, they walk in and people just wait. Wait for the next silence, the next collapse, the next moment where their names get swallowed by a reality that no longer respects their rules. Because you didn't just end a network, you ended an era. They used to laugh at people like you until you started laughing back while walking through fire. And when you didn't burn, they realized you weren't one of them. You weren't bound by the same laws. You weren't locked into the same rituals. You were built different. And that difference wasn't style, wasn't ego, wasn't performance. It was origin. You didn't come from their circle. You came from the breach. Born in the middle of madness and shaped in silence, so that one day, without warning, you'd become the exception. And they can't stop it. They can't reverse it. They can't curse it. They can't cancel what they never understood. Because what you really did wasn't just spiritual warfare. It wasn't just inner healing. It wasn't just justice. You performed a ritual of erasure, not on yourself, on them. You wiped their names off the walls of influence. You reduced their covens to whispers. You broke their altars without lifting a hand, because you realized the real power wasn't in the fight. It was in the frequency. You tuned yourself so high that none of their darkness could reach you. And then you started echoing. Now your presence changes rooms, not because you're loud, not because you're famous, but because the spiritual field bends when you arrive. They used to cast shadows. Now they look over their shoulder just to make sure you're not standing there watching. And what scares them most, they don't even know what you are anymore. Are you a man? Are you a myth? Are you the one who survived? Or the one who was sent? Because only one of those options explains why they can't sleep. Why they keep seeing your face in every downfall. Why every time another mask falls off, your name tastes like prophecy. You didn't announce the war. You didn't post about the ritual. You didn't document the takedown. You just walked in, let your silence choke the air, and walked out with their entire structure bleeding behind you. One man, no cape, no spellbook, no allies, just rage, memory, stillness, and the kind of clarity that makes devils reconsider their mission. Because you didn't kill their bodies, you killed their belief that they were safe. And now, nothing they build feels stable. Nothing they touch feels sacred. Nothing they say sounds powerful. Because you broke more than their system. You broke their illusion. They thought the illusion was indestructible, that if they built it deep enough, wrapped it in tradition, sealed it in ritual, spoke in tongues and bloodlines and hierarchies, that no one would dare touch it, no one would question it. But then you walked in, no robe, no cult, no candles, just clarity sharpened to a blade. And while they were chanting in secret, you were listening in silence, mapping every frequency, tracking every weak point, until you didn't need permission, didn't need approval, didn't need a sign. You became the sign, you became the breach. And when it cracked, you didn't run. You opened the fucking door wider. And what came through wasn't fire, wasn't chaos, wasn't vengeance. It was truth, raw, inevitable, weaponized. Because while they hid behind ancient scripts, you rewrote the language of spiritual warfare. They called it attack. You called it alignment. They called it blasphemy. You called it awakening. They called it disrespect. You called it justice with teeth. And they weren't ready, not for the silence, not for the stillness, not for the lack of fear in your eyes when you dismantled every pillar they thought held power. You walked into their sacred space like it was your fucking living room. You treated their symbols like furniture, and their rules, you didn't bend them. You exposed them as man-made paper chains. Now they sit in rooms once filled with energy, and all they feel is echo. Cold, empty, heavy. Because the moment you walked out, the spirits followed you, not them, you. Because what you really did wasn't just take down a group. You stole the gravity, you stole the center. You walked in and made the power recognize its true owner. And now their rituals don't work. Their influence feels thin, their connections short-circuit. Because you reset the current. You didn't fight like them. You fought like someone who's seen what happens when darkness gets too comfortable. You didn't retaliate. You remembered. Every moment they laughed at your visions, dismissed your intuition, called you crazy, called you weak. But you were never weak. You were just early. And being early always feels like isolation, until the collapse proves your clock was the only one that worked. Now, they move different. They hide more. Because they know someone out there brought down their whole operation with nothing but spiritual resistance and a silence that screamed louder than their spells. They still don't understand it. How one man undid a network built across generations. How you walked out of their traps unbothered. How you kept your soul intact while they bartered theirs for power that never belonged to them. But that's the part that will keep haunting them. You didn't just survive. You remembered. You remembered who you were before the gaslighting, before the confusion, before they tried to reprogram your divinity into submission. And once you remembered, you became unspeakable, a walking contradiction, the saint with a kill switch, the angel with a hit list, the wounded healer with a soldier's mind and a prophet's precision. And now you're too much to explain, too accurate to deny, too calm to be controlled, too powerful to be ignored. You're not a survivor, you're a myth that breathes. You're the one they whisper about in rooms they used to own. And every time another one of them slips, every time another lie falls apart, every time another sigil fails, they remember what you said, or worse, they remember what you didn't say. Because silence from someone who saw everything, that's not peace, that's judgment, that's surveillance. That's the kind of quiet that makes people question what they were ever loyal to. You left no scar, you left void, a black hole where their control used to live. And every time they reach for that old power, they feel you. Not watching, not judging, just present. Like the frequency never left. You're not a threat anymore. You're a truth bomb that already detonated, and now all they can do is try to survive the reality you made possible. Because the most terrifying thing you ever did wasn't the takedown, wasn't the reversal, wasn't even the destruction of their little spiritual cartel. Number. The most terrifying thing you ever did was survive with your awareness intact. You came out of the trap remembering names, remembering frequencies, remembering what shifted in the air when lies dressed up as loyalty, what was said in rooms you were never supposed to escape from. You remember the patterns, the smirks, the fake concern, the rituals performed in secret under the disguise of protection. They thought you'd be too broken to speak, too paranoid to trust yourself, too desperate to prove your innocence, but instead, you went silent. And that's what made them spiral. Because you didn't respond to the slander. You didn't clarify your side. You didn't go public. You didn't expose anyone. You just kept upgrading quietly, consistently, with a look in your eyes like you already knew how this would end, like you'd seen this before, like this exact structure had tried to kill you in a past life, and failed then, too. Because some souls don't reincarnate to heal. They reincarnate to finish what they started. You didn't just come here to glow. You came here to pull the wires out of the matrix and stand still while the sparks hit the floor. You weren't built for luxury. You were forged for impact, which is why you made it. Why you were chosen, not to be liked, but to be inevitable. And they felt it. That moment they realized they couldn't curse you. They could only reveal themselves. Every time they tried to sabotage you, they gave themselves away. Every smear campaign, a confession, every spiritual hit job, a breadcrumb trail to their own fear. Every lie told about you, a highlight reel of their insecurity posing as strategy. You didn't fight them. You let them document their own downfall, like the hunter who laid no traps, because he already knew the prey was self-destructive. And when the house of mirrors finally broke, they weren't just exposed. They were empty, because your silence wasn't passive. It was a mirror. And when they looked into it, they didn't see you. They saw every fake alliance, every manipulation, every cover-up, every layer of power they borrowed, not earned. That's the kind of destruction no fire can match. That's the kind of spiritual assassination only the chosen are authorized to perform. You didn't scream, you didn't shake, you just stood there, with the calm of someone who knew the network was already dissolving, like you had pre-seen their panic, like you'd already read the script and were simply watching the prophecy fulfill itself, line by desperate line. They thought they were playing chess, but you weren't even on the board. You were the glitch in the system, the unprogrammable move, the anomaly that wasn't supposed to exist. And now that you've detonated their structure, they're not just afraid of you. They're afraid of what else is coming through that tear in reality you created. Because once one walks through, others follow. You weren't just the assassin, you were the signal. You were the first sign that the Age of Shadows was ending, and their strongholds, just outdated code. They never understood you, but now they study you in silence like a lab leak, like a case file they don't know how to close. Because if you made it through, what else made it? What force sent you? What entity walks with you in dimensions they never gained access to? They're not asking, how did he do it, anymore. They're asking, what is he? And that is the beginning of their undoing. They thought you were a man. They thought you were trauma in a hoodie, a survivor with a chip on your shoulder, an overachiever trying to outrun the pain. But now they look at you and realize you weren't wounded. You were weaponized, refined through silence, sharpened through betrayal, calibrated through isolation, and now you walk different. Not loud, not fast, but like someone who's not afraid to trigger the next collapse just by standing still. Because you don't need to prove anything anymore. Your existence is the proof. Your breath is the evidence. Your presence is the final argument. You used to explain yourself. Now you just walk in, and people adjust their posture. Like the atmosphere shifted. Like their spirit knows what their mouth is too afraid to admit. You're not the same frequency they used to play with. You're radioactive now. Not because you're unstable, but because anything that tries to contain you gets burned alive by truth. You don't even need revenge, because your evolution is lethal. It kills the narrative. It breaks the spells. It makes everything they said about you look like comedy sketches in hindsight. They said you were delusional. Now their reality is collapsing. They said you were dangerous. Now people are asking if they ever even existed without the power they siphoned. They said you were broken. Now you're moving like the template. And what's wild, you didn't even announce your comeback. You didn't call it an era. You didn't label it a glow-up. You just kept rebuilding in the dark until your silence turned into an earthquake and the map had to redraw itself around you. Because the power you carry now, it's not loud, it's not pretty, it's not marketable, it's ancient, it's coded. It's exactly what the darkness fears. Someone who can't be bribed, baited, or broken. They tried to study you, tried to analyze your blueprint, but they failed because they were looking for logic. What they didn't realize was, you were built on paradox. You're the glitch and the firewall, the punishment and the prophecy, the one who got away, and the reason no one else will. You're the riddle they tried to answer with force. But you don't respond to force. You respond to alignment. That's why they couldn't keep you. Because you don't serve ego. You don't worship hierarchy. You don't bow to legacy. You answer only to truth. And when truth calls, you show up like thunder that doesn't ask permission. They tried to put you back in the box, but it doesn't exist anymore. Because when you annihilated that demonic network, you didn't just destroy them. You destroyed the part of you that still needed to be liked, understood, invited, explained. That version of you, dead, mourned in silence, replaced by something uncontainable. And now you've got them rattled, not because you're violent, but because you're inevitable. Because when you show up, systems collapse, lies retreat, false light flickers, and truth stares dead into the room like a sniper who's already locked in. You don't scream anymore. You hum, you vibrate, you move like someone who's seen the next 10 timelines and knows exactly how each one ends. And that makes them panic. Because you're not guessing, you're not manifesting, you're executing with accuracy, with stillness, with the kind of confidence that doesn't come from wins, but from knowing you've already survived the worst. You've been buried, gaslit, exiled, erased, and somehow you still came back as the new law of the land. Now the ones who tried to curse you, they walk carefully, not because you're vengeful, but because they know. You don't forget, you don't broadcast, you just let the universe collect. And when it does, it comes back with interest. You don't argue. You don't clap back. You don't chase recognition. Because you understand now, power doesn't speak. Power just arrives. Power just is. And right now, you are power. Look at you, standing there like the world hasn't already filed a goddamn report on you. Good. Stay still, because I need you to hear this without your pulse drowning out the truth. You felt it too, didn't you? That shiver that ran through the room the moment you made that move. That one move that was too perfect, too surgical, too fucking precise for a human who's been through what you've been through. And now they're whispering that you trained with ghost units. Not soldiers, not operatives, ghosts. You know what that means, right? It means they've officially run out of explanations for you. It means you crossed the line from talented to unclassifiable. It means the story they tell about you in their private group chats sounds more like a military myth than a person with a heartbeat. And you didn't even break a sweat. Let me ask you something. Do you even realize what you looked like in that moment? Because I saw it. I watched the way the air bent around you like it knew you were about to rewrite the physics of the room. I watched grown adults freeze like toddlers who just saw a shadow move on its own. I watched the truth hit them like a bullet they never heard leave the chamber. You're not like them. You never were. And that terrifies them in ways they don't have vocabulary for. See, people like them, they think strength comes from effort, from discipline, from training, cute little human ideas. But your power comes from something they cannot imitate. Pain carved into precision. Silence sharpened into instinct, loneliness distilled into prophecy, and darkness rearranged into technique. Ghost units didn't train you. Ghost units would fall behind you. But they can't comprehend that, can they? So they invent stories. You must have trained with someone dangerous. You must have learned that from classified sources. You must have been taught by someone who doesn't officially exist. They never consider the truth. That the thing they're afraid of is not who trained you, it's what forged you. Because there's a difference. Training gives you skill. But suffering gives you reflexes that feel supernatural. Tell me, how do you explain to ordinary minds that you didn't learn that move? You survived it. You were sculpted by nights where nobody came to help. You were refined by betrayals that burned hotter than blowtorches. You were shaped by moments so violent, so isolating, so psychologically dismembering that something inside you split, and something else took control. The part of you they're whispering about, the part they call ghost, the part that doesn't panic, doesn't shake, doesn't miscalculate. The part that sees 3 steps ahead because you've already lived the consequences of being too slow. It's not magic. It's not training. It's not supernatural. It's evolution through agony. But let them speculate. Let them build legends around you. Let them think you studied under invisible assassins in abandoned bunkers. Let them think you had access to secret programs that don't appear on government ledgers. Because the real punchline? The truth is so much darker than their myths. You weren't taught by ghost units. You became one. You move like someone who's already died once. You calculate like someone who's already lived through the worst-case scenario. You react like someone whose nervous system has seen things the living never should. And that's why that move scared them. It wasn't perfect because you practiced. It was perfect because you had no choice. Let's expose the duality, shall we? They see an angel of precision, but they don't see the demon of memory behind it. They see light in your timing, but they don't see the darkness that taught you when to strike. They see a saint-like calm, but they don't see the psychopath-level clarity pain injected straight into your bones. They see the result. But you remember the origin, and that's why you walk differently now. Not with arrogance, not with ego, with ghost walk certainty. You've reached the stage they fear most. The stage where you act without hesitation because you've lived the consequences of hesitating. You've become the paradox they can't study. A human who moves like a haunting, a survivor who thinks like a tactician, a soul bruised enough to sense threats before they breathe. An angel with a demon's awareness, a demon with an angel's restraint. Tell me, do you realize what that makes you? A weapon fate built in silence. A blueprint for evolution. A living contradiction too accurate to be random. That's why they're nervous. That's why they're analyzing footage of you frame by frame like some secret agency trying to decode extraterrestrial behavior. That's why your name is suddenly wrapped in speculation, questions, and oh yes, fear. Because deep down, they know what I'm about to whisper into your ear. You didn't train with ghosts. You left them behind. And now the living are trying to understand a creature forged in the places they don't dare walk. So go on. Let them think you were trained by ghost units. The truth? You're the ghost they send units to hunt. You think it ends there. Oh no, that was just the surface tension of the truth. Now we dive into the abyss you pretend doesn't still pulse under your skin. Because the real reason they think you trained with ghost units is simple. You moved like you had nothing left to lose. People who still crave approval don't move like that. People who still want to be understood don't move like that. People who still fear consequences definitely don't move like that. Only someone who's been broken down to dust, pieced themselves back together with trembling hands, and stood up with a soul stitched in the wrong places, moves like you. That precision they're obsessing over, that perfect execution they're replaying like a sacred ritual, they think it came from a mentor, a program, a classified unit. But you and I both know the truth. That move came from the version of you that died and didn't stay dead. That version still haunts you, doesn't it? The one forged in rooms where you couldn't scream, the one who learned to read danger in pitch-black silence, the one who discovered that time slows down when your survival finally decides it's tired of being ignored. That's the ghost unit they're imagining, not a team, not a training ground, a resurrection, a rebirth that wasn't gentle, wasn't spiritual, wasn't peaceful. It was violent. It was silent. It was involuntary. It turned you into someone who doesn't need to think. Your instincts do all the talking. That's why they're scared. Because while they were learning from textbooks, you were learning from trauma. While they were taught by instructors, you were taught by consequences sharp enough to cut timelines. While they practiced technique, you practiced not dying. Now tell me, who do you think is more dangerous, them, or the one who turned every scar into muscle memory? They don't understand your duality. They see only the surface, the calm, the stance, the timing. They see your light, the part of you that moves gracefully, thinks with clarity, acts with precision. They don't see the darkness behind it, the part that watches everything with predator stillness, the part that calculates angles like a fallen angel with insomnia, the part that learned philosophy from pain and timing from terror. They think you trained with ghosts because you move like someone who has already buried their past self. And that's the piece that kills them, because they haven't buried theirs. They're still negotiating with it. You put yours in the ground and walked away without flinching. That's why they whisper. That's why they stare a little too long. That's why they speak your name like it's a malfunction, a glitch, a breach in the narrative. Let me show you something. When you made that move, that impossibly clean, inhumanly fast, unnervingly precise move, you didn't just bend the room, you bent their identity. Because for the first time, they saw what it looks like when someone returns from hell, not grateful, not humbled, but upgraded. They saw evolution in real time, and it wasn't poetic, it was threatening. And that's why they're panicking. They're not scared of your skill. They're scared of your origin story. They can replicate technique, they can imitate form, they can study footage, but they can't recreate the conditions that made you, because those conditions would crush them, and you walked out of them smirking. You walk like a question mark wrapped in a warning sign. You think like a saint possessed by a strategist. You move like a demon remembering it once had wings. Angel, psychopath, saint, sinner, light, darkness. You're the paradox they can't categorize. And every time you demonstrate that precision, every time you execute something that shouldn't be possible without elite training or supernatural guidance, they feel it. They were made by the world. You were made by what lives beneath it. And here's the part that'll keep them up tonight. Ghost units don't train people like you. Ghost units study people like you. They document people like you. They send analysts to figure out what chemicals spill, what cosmic glitch, what psychological rupture allows a human to move with that kind of perfect, unhesitating intent. You're the anomaly they'd lose careers over. You're the file that gets redacted before it's even printed. You're the report they can't submit because the moment they try to describe you, the words start to look fictional. So let me break it down. They think you trained with ghost units. But the truth? You became the kind of creature ghost units wish they could recruit. Not human, not myth, not monster, something in between, something liminal, something the living can't imitate and the dead can't control. The kind of presence that doesn't enter a room. It recalibrates it. The kind of precision that doesn't look practiced. It looks inevitable. The kind of strength that doesn't feel learned. It feels foretold. So go on. Let them create their little stories. Let them blame ghost units. Let them twist their minds, trying to place you into boxes that don't have your dimensions, because deep down, behind their confusion, under their fear, in the tiny corner of their mind where truth still survives, they know. You didn't train with ghost units. Ghost units would need training to keep up with you. You want more? Good. Because I haven't even opened the classified part of your soul yet. Let's go deeper into the territory even you avoid, the place where your instincts were born. See, the reason they think you trained with ghost units is because you didn't move like someone reacting. You moved like someone remembering. That's the part that rattled them. People who react hesitate. People who react flinch. People who react negotiate with fear first. But your body moved before your mind explained the threat. You acted like you'd been there before, like you'd lived that moment in another lifetime, in another battle, under another sky. And that's the thing. You have. Not literally, no, but psychologically, spiritually, traumatically. Yes, because every nightmare you lived through became a rehearsal. Every betrayal you absorbed became a simulation. Every dark room where you sat alone became a training ground. Every mistake that shattered you became a trigger you swore you'd never allow again. So when that moment came, when the danger cracked open in front of you, You didn't see something new. You saw something familiar, something you've defeated in a different form. That's why the move was so perfect, it looked unnatural. You didn't calculate it, you recognized it. And recognition is faster than thought. But you can't explain that to people who've never been shaped by fire. You can't explain that to people who've never had survival become their native language. You can't explain that to people who think pressure creates diamonds, when pressure actually creates monsters with aim. They're not scared of the move. They're scared of what made it possible. Let's break that open. They think you trained with ghost units because they can't comprehend someone improving without witnesses. They can't fathom someone getting dangerous in silence. They can't imagine someone evolving without applause or validation. Their growth is public. Yours was subterranean. Their progress needed support. Yours needed isolation. Their improvement required motivation. Yours required hell. Tell me, how do you teach someone the kind of focus you learned on nights you couldn't afford to break? How do you explain the kind of discipline that forms when you're the only one left to fix what life shattered? How do you describe the kind of instinct that develops when fear has hunted you so long you know its footsteps better than your own? Ghost units. No. You trained with something far more ruthless, reality. Raw, unfiltered, merciless reality. The kind that doesn't care if you're ready. The kind that doesn't warn you before it hammers you into a new shape. You don't have training. You have scar-coded reflexes, trauma-enhanced awareness, pain-refined precision, silence-built strategy, darkness-fed intuition, failure-forged accuracy. And the irony? Ghost units actually depend on these traits. They train toward what you developed accidentally. That's why your move hit harder than it should have, why it looked inhuman, why it felt prophetic. Because it didn't come from instruction, it came from rebirth. You know what else they don't understand? The duality in you. You move like light, fast, clean, decisive, but your intent, your intuition, your calm, dark as a closed coffin. You strike like an angel, but calculate like a demon. You look serene, but think like a war strategy that learned how to walk. Your presence is saint-like, but your instincts are feral. You are the contradiction the world fears. Someone shaped by darkness who still chooses light with terrifying precision. That's why they think ghost units trained you. Because nothing else explains how someone can be both. Still and lethal, silent and decisive, gentle and devastating, human and myth. But let me take you to the moment that sealed their fear permanently. It wasn't the move itself. It was what happened after. You didn't celebrate. You didn't smirk. You didn't act proud. You didn't even adjust your breathing. You just stood there. Calm, cold, neutral, almost bored. That's the behavior of someone who's done this 1,000 times. Someone who didn't panic, didn't flinch, didn't get lucky. Someone who trusted their own evolution more than their own heartbeat. That's why they're whispering ghost units. Because they need a narrative that lets them sleep at night. The alternative is too terrifying. That someone like you created this level alone, unsupervised, unmonitored, unregulated, unrestrained. They can't accept that, because if it's true, if you really built that precision through hell, pain, and quiet resurrection, then what else are you capable of? What else have you evolved past? What else inside you is waiting to awaken? And here's the part your enemy's prey never becomes public. Ghost units don't train people like you. Ghost units get deployed because someone like you already exists. You aren't the student. You're the incident report. You aren't the trainee. You're the scenario they warn rookies about. You aren't the myth. You're the reason myths are invented, and you know it. That's why you move the way you do, with that eerie confidence, that ghost-slick precision, that unshakable calm of someone who survived the kind of storms that rewrite DNA. So go ahead, make another move. Watch them scramble, watch them theorize, watch them panic. Because the truth they'll never say out loud is this: you didn't train with ghost units. You're the ghost that makes units rethink their mission. And the deeper you go into this transformation, the harder it becomes for them to pretend they aren't watching you in awe, wrapped in fear. Because after that perfect, surgical, silent move you made, they didn't just think you trained with ghost units. They started wondering if you even have a pulse. Normal people don't move like that. Normal people don't react with that kind of cold accuracy. Normal people don't look danger in the face and behave like they've already solved the entire encounter before anyone else even registers the threat. But you carry that eerie stillness, that unnerving quiet that belongs to someone who has walked through something unspeakable and didn't come out trembling. You came out transformed. What they felt in that moment wasn't admiration. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't curiosity. It was recognition. They recognized something ancient in you, something feral, something that doesn't wake up for applause or validation, only for purpose. Because the truth they avoid is this: the move wasn't perfect by chance. It was perfect because it came from a place they've never had to visit. A place where hesitation kills. A place where instincts sharpen like blades. A place where silence isn't peace, it's pressure. Where darkness isn't emptiness, it's training. You didn't study form. You memorized consequence. You didn't train technique. You trained survival. You didn't rehearse timing. You learned the cost of being too slow. Ghost units practice to reach clarity. You reached clarity because life didn't give you another goddamn option. That's what terrifies them the most. Because every elite group on the planet, every covert team, every clandestine force, every off-record squad is built on the idea that humans must be molded to become weapons. But you weren't molded, you crystallized. Pressure didn't break you, it refined you. Darkness didn't swallow you, it discipled you. Fear didn't freeze you, it instructed you. Pain didn't weaken you, it calibrated you. Every piece of you sharpened in the silence they avoid, in the emotional wastelands they fear, in the psychological ruins they pray they'll never enter. And this is why your move felt supernatural to them. They felt the ghost of everything you survived move through your body like a second spine. That's why the room went quiet. That's why their faces dropped. That's why their instincts screamed something was off. Because for a split second, you didn't look human. You looked inevitable. And inevitable is something humans can't fight. Listen to the truth humming beneath their theories. Ghost units didn't teach you that precision. Your scars did. Your disappointments did. Your losses did. Your sleepless nights did. Your collapses did. Your rebuilds did. Your dark phases did. Every moment you thought you were breaking was another moment something sharper was being born. If only they knew the duality that lives under your skin. How you can be both gentle and deadly, humble and unstoppable, quiet and catastrophic, light on the surface, dark where it matters, a saint's calm with a demon's instincts, an angel's softness with a psychopath's precision. No wonder they panic. Your existence alone forces them to confront a truth they spend their lives hiding from. Some people don't need permission to become extraordinary. They just need a reason. And life gave you more reasons than anyone should have to endure. That's why your presence feels like a breach in the system. That's why they label you a ghost-trained anomaly. That's why they whisper like you're a classified problem, not a person. Because deep down, they already know the truth they'll never admit aloud. If ghost units existed at the level they imagine, they would be studying you, not training you, not teaching you, not leading you, studying you. Shh. Feel that stillness in the air, that tight, frozen silence where even the lights seem to hesitate. That's not peace. That's the moment right before the verdict drops. That's the sound of Christmas justice loading. You thought this season was about mercy, about smiles, songs, soft lights, and second chances. That's what they tell the obedient. That's what they feed the ones who never questioned why the world keeps rewarding the same monsters. But you weren't built for the children's version of the story. You were built for the hidden chapter, the one written in ink so dark it stains time itself. Because let's get something straight. This isn't hope anymore. This is game over. Game over for everyone who sat in the shadows waiting for your collapse. Game over for the ones who preyed on your exhaustion, who bookmarked your worst days like highlights. Game over for the spectators who wanted front row seats to your downfall. Popcorn in hand, ego inflated, convinced your pain was entertainment. They thought December would finish you. They thought the cold would slow you down. They thought the year would bury you. Instead, it crowned you. See, you did something unforgivable in their world. You survived when you were supposed to break. You adapted when you were supposed to beg. You learned when you were supposed to repeat the same mistakes until you vanished quietly. And that's when the script snapped. That's when the illusion shattered. Because nothing terrifies people more than a person who evolves through pain and comes back calm. You're walking proof that suffering doesn't weaken, it sharpens. That darkness doesn't corrupt, it clarifies. You didn't become bitter, you became precise. You didn't become cruel, you became honest. And honesty, real honesty, is violent in a world addicted to lies. They don't understand you because you're a paradox. You smile like a saint and think like a psychopath. You give like an angel and calculate like a demon. You can sit quietly in the room, polite, composed, almost invisible, and still be the most dangerous variable in the equation. You learned restraint, not fear. You learned patience, not submission. You learned when to be silent and when to let the truth detonate. And now it's Christmas. Funny thing about Christmas, it's not just about gifts. It's about judgment. It's about the ledger. Who gave, who took, who pretended to care, who smiled while sharpening the knife behind their back. This season doesn't forget. It remembers, and it balances the scales with surgical precision. You see, while they were busy celebrating too early, you were studying patterns. While they were gossiping, you were building immunity. While they were laughing at your scars, you were turning each one into armor. Every betrayal taught you something. Every loss upgraded you. Every lonely night forced you to meet yourself without distractions. And you didn't flinch. That's where they lost. Because they never realized the quiet version of you was the most lethal one. The version that stopped explaining. The version that stopped chasing validation. The version that stopped trying to be understood. You let them underestimate you. You let them mislabel you. You let them think they'd won. That wasn't weakness. That was strategy. Now look at them, nervous, watching, pretending not to care while refreshing the page, whispering your name like it's a curse they can't break. They feel it. The shift, the pressure, the fact that something about you is no longer predictable. You don't react the way you used to. You don't bleed the way you used to. You don't need them the way you never actually did. And that's when fear sets in. Because unpredictability is power. When they can't map you, they can't control you. When they can't trigger you, they can't farm your pain. When they can't read your next move, they start projecting their own guilt onto you. Suddenly you're too much. Suddenly you're dangerous. Suddenly they're rewriting history to make themselves the victim. Classic. But here's the part they didn't plan for. Christmas justice doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't announce itself. It arrives quietly, wrapped in consequences, delivered with a smile. Not revenge, not chaos, balance. You don't need to destroy them. Life already queued that up. You just needed to become the version of yourself that could walk away without looking back. The version that doesn't need applause. The version that doesn't flinch when doors close, because you learned how to build your own exits. And that's the real nightmare for them, because they wanted to watch you fall. Instead, they're forced to watch you rise without them. They wanted to witness your breakdown. Instead, they're witnessing your clarity. They wanted a tragedy. They got a transformation. This season, you're not begging for peace. You're enforcing it. Not loudly, not violently, just by existing at a level they can't reach anymore. By being so aligned, so composed, so internally lethal that their chaos can't even touch you. Let them celebrate. Let them fake joy. Let them pretend the scoreboard isn't lighting up behind their eyes. Deep down, they know. They feel it every time your name crosses their mind. They missed their chance. They bet against the wrong one. Because you weren't built to be a cautionary tale. You were built to be the consequence. And this is Christmas justice. They're trying to act normal now. That's the funniest part. Same smiles, same posts, same recycled cheer. But underneath, panic. Because deep down, they know something fundamental shifted, and it didn't shift in their favor. You didn't just survive the storm. You came out calibrated, and nothing terrifies people more than realizing the version of you they tried to destroy no longer exists. They miss the old you, the one who explained, the one who hesitated, the one who doubted, the one who tried to keep the peace, even when it cost you your spine. That version made them comfortable. That version was predictable. That version could be poked, provoked, drained. But you buried that ghost quietly, without ceremony, without warning. And now they're left arguing with an absence. See, they thought your kindness was weakness. They thought your silence was fear. They thought your patience meant you didn't see what was happening. They never considered the possibility that you were watching everything and choosing when to move. They never imagined that every insult, every dismissal, every little betrayal was being archived, not for revenge, but for refinement. That's the part they don't understand. You didn't get darker because you wanted to hurt people. You got darker because you wanted the truth. You wanted clarity. You wanted to stop bleeding for people who treated your loyalty like a resource to exploit. You stepped into the shadow not to become a monster, but to learn how monsters think, so you'd never be prey again. And now you walk with that knowledge calmly, casually, like it doesn't weigh anything at all. They sense it, that subtle shift in your presence. You don't overreact. You don't over-explain. You don't chase energy that doesn't match yours. You let people reveal themselves and then you adjust, surgically. You've mastered the art of letting people underestimate you while you quietly outgrow the entire room. That's Christmas justice too. Because while they're busy counting decorations and pretending the year didn't expose them, you're counting patterns. You're seeing who vanished when you struggled and who resurfaced when you stabilized. You're noticing who only claps when it's safe and who secretly hoped you'd stay broken because your healing threatens their narrative. And the realization hits them late at night when the noise dies down. You don't need them anymore. That's the verdict. That's the sentence. Not exile, not humiliation, irrelevance. You see, the most brutal outcome for someone who wanted to witness your downfall isn't watching you suffer. It's watching you thrive without their involvement. It's realizing their opinions no longer matter. Their access is gone. Their influence expired. Their power over you dissolved the moment you stopped needing their approval to breathe. They wanted to be the judges. They ended up being footnotes. And you didn't announce it. You didn't make a scene. You didn't post a manifesto. You just moved differently. You spoke less. You listened more. You chose yourself without asking permission. You learned that peace isn't passive. It's enforced through boundaries sharp enough to cut illusions clean in half. That's why they're uneasy around you now. Conversations feel off. Eye contact lingers too long or disappears entirely. They don't know where they stand with you anymore, and that uncertainty eats at them. Because once someone realizes you're no longer emotionally available for manipulation, the game collapses. And make no mistake, this was always a game to them. They tested limits. They pushed buttons. They placed bets on how much you could take before you cracked. They mistook your humanity for infinite tolerance. But you reached the point every dangerous person reaches eventually. The moment you decide you'd rather be misunderstood than disrespected. From that moment on, the outcome was sealed. Christmas justice doesn't scream. It doesn't chase. It doesn't explain itself to people who already chose not to listen. It simply rearranges reality so that everyone ends up exactly where they belong. Some end up closer. Some end up gone. Some end up watching from a distance, confused about how they lost access to someone they never deserved in the first place. And you end up lighter, sharper, untouchable, in ways that don't show on the surface. You don't need to prove anything now. Your existence is the proof. Your calm is the evidence. Your restraint is the warning. Anyone still hoping for your downfall is already too late. The version of you they wanted to see fail doesn't exist anymore. This season marks the end of the old cycle, the old traps, the old self-betrayals. You're not entering a new year begging for mercy. You're entering it with discernment, with teeth hidden behind a composed smile, with the kind of inner authority that doesn't need permission or applause. So let them watch. Let them whisper. Let them pretend this is just another phase. You know the truth. It's not a phase. It's the final score. Game over. And here's the part nobody warns them about. The silence after the loss. Not the loud kind. Not the dramatic kind. The quiet, suffocating realization that the door they slammed behind you didn't trap you. It freed you. They keep expecting a reaction, a relapse, a public unraveling, something they can point at and say, "See, we were right." But all they get is your composure, your distance, your unsettling calm. That calm is what breaks them, because chaos they understand, pain they can exploit, rage they can provoke. But a person who has walked through hell, cataloged every scar, and come back disciplined, that's unfamiliar territory. That's not someone you can bully bait or bend. That's someone who learned how to weaponize stillness. You don't rush anymore. You don't overshare. You don't offer your heart to people who haven't earned the right to know how it beats. You learned that access is a privilege, not a default. And the moment you internalized that, the hierarchy flipped. They used to feel taller when you were hurting, smarter when you were doubting, stronger when you were apologizing for things that were never your fault. But now your presence levels the room. You don't dominate, you don't submit. You simply exist with a gravity that forces everyone else to reveal their insecurity. That's why they're uncomfortable. They sense that you see through them, that you always did, that you were never naive, just choosing grace over destruction. But grace has limits, and once crossed, it doesn't turn into anger, it turns into absence, and absence is permanent. You stopped chasing closure because you realized closure was a luxury for people who played fair. You stopped waiting for apologies because you understood some people only apologize to regain access. You stopped fantasizing about revenge because life does a far better job balancing the scales when you step out of the way. That's Christmas justice, too. It's watching people receive exactly what they invested. The ones who gave loyalty find you still warm. The ones who gave manipulation find you unreachable. The ones who fed on your pain are left starving, confused why the supply dried up without warning. And they replay moments in their head now. The jokes they made, the lines they crossed, the times they thought you wouldn't notice. They didn't know every moment was a lesson. They didn't know you were studying behavior, not reacting to it. They didn't know you were evolving in real time. You became someone who doesn't need to announce boundaries because your energy enforces them automatically. Someone who doesn't threaten because your absence speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. Someone who understands that power isn't loud, it's consistent. And here's the cruel irony. The very people who wanted to witness your downfall are now witnesses to your restraint. They expected chaos. They got control. They expected desperation. They got discernment. They expected you to lose yourself. Instead, you found yourself without them. That realization sits heavy during the holidays, when distractions fade, when the lights go off, when they're alone with their thoughts and your name surfaces uninvited. They wonder when it happened, when you slipped out of reach, when they stopped being relevant to your life story. It wasn't sudden, it was earned. Every ignored message, every unreturned call, every neutral response where there used to be emotional availability. You didn't become cold, you became selective. You didn't close your heart, you protected it. You didn't turn cruel, you turned accurate. And accuracy is terrifying, because now you see people exactly as they are, not as they pretend to be. You no longer confuse potential with character. You no longer mistake familiarity for loyalty. You no longer give infinite chances to people who treat you like a renewable resource. You've learned that peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the absence of self-betrayal. And once you stop betraying yourself, everything else rearranges. So let them cling to their narratives. Let them tell themselves whatever story helps them sleep. You don't need to correct it. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to prove anything. The scoreboard already reflects the outcome. You're walking into the next chapter lighter, sharper, unbothered by opinions that no longer carry weight. You're not driven by vengeance, you're driven by alignment. And alignment is ruthless to anything that doesn't belong. This isn't luck, this isn't coincidence. This is the natural result of choosing growth over bitterness, clarity over comfort, truth over approval. And that's why it's over. Not with noise, not with drama, but with certainty. Game over. For everyone who wanted to see you fall, because the only thing they're watching now is you walking forward without them. And what they still don't realize, what keeps slipping past their understanding, is that this wasn't fueled by hatred. Hatred burns hot and fast. Hatred is sloppy. Hatred announces itself. What reshaped you was something colder, cleaner. A quiet, disciplined resolve, born from seeing the truth one too many times and deciding you would never unsee it again. You reached the point where excuses stopped sounding convincing, where apologies without change sounded like static, where promises felt like currency printed by people already bankrupt. And instead of raging about it, you adjusted, you recalibrated, you evolved past the need to convince anyone of anything. That's when the power shifted, because you learned something most people never do. Pain is information. Betrayal is data. Disappointment is a diagnostic tool. Every moment that hurt you wasn't there to break you. It was there to show you where you were leaking energy, loyalty, attention, self-respect. And once you sealed those leaks, everything changed. You stopped performing. You stopped overgiving. You stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't even notice the stain. They don't get that this version of you isn't angry. It's resolved. You're not holding grudges. You're holding standards. You're not punishing anyone. You're simply no longer available for dysfunction. And that feels like punishment to people who relied on your tolerance to survive. They call you cold now, distant, different. Of course they do. Warmth feels like weakness to people who only come close to feed. Distance feels like cruelty to people who benefited from your proximity. Growth always offends those who needed you small. But you didn't grow to impress them. You grew to survive yourself. There were nights you had to sit alone with thoughts no one else could handle. Moments when quitting would have been easier than continuing. Times when the weight of being misunderstood pressed so hard it felt physical. And you still kept going, not because you were fearless, but because you refused to let the worst moments of your life define the rest of it. That's the part they'll never be able to copy. Anyone can talk tough when life is kind. Anyone can preach positivity from a comfortable distance. But you were forged when the lights were off and no one was watching. When there was no applause waiting, when the only reward for continuing was the quiet knowledge that you didn't give up on yourself. And now look at you. You don't chase chaos anymore. You don't argue with delusion. You don't explain your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. You move with intention. You choose where your energy goes. You let silence do the heavy lifting. That silence is loud to the right people. It tells them you're no longer desperate for connection, that you've outgrown the need to be chosen by people who couldn't choose integrity, that you understand solitude is safer than company that costs you your peace. And once you accept that, the fear disappears. Because what can they take from someone who's already let go? They can't threaten you with abandonment. You've mastered being alone. They can't scare you with rejection. You stopped outsourcing your value. They can't control you with approval. You don't need it to function. That's when the game truly ends. Christmas justice isn't about revenge fantasies or dramatic payback. It's about alignment, catching up to reality. It's about the universe removing what doesn't fit without asking how you feel about it. It's about the quiet satisfaction of knowing you didn't compromise your soul just to be accepted. They wanted to watch you fall apart. Instead, they watched you fall inward, into yourself, and come back whole. Not softer, not colder, whole. And that wholeness is dangerous, because a whole person doesn't need to manipulate, dominate, or destroy. A whole person simply walks away from what doesn't serve them and build something better elsewhere. And there's nothing more threatening than someone who doesn't need revenge to feel powerful. So let them keep hoping for your collapse. Let them keep telling themselves stories about why you changed. Let them keep mistaking your silence for weakness and your distance for fear. You know the truth. You didn't lose anything worth keeping. You didn't miss out on anything meant for you. You didn't survive all that just to go backwards. This isn't an ending, it's a final verdict. The chapter where you were underestimated is closed. The season where you were accessible to disrespect is over. The version of you they were waiting to see fail is gone. And all that's left now is someone who knows exactly who they are, exactly what they're worth, and exactly why it's game over. Not just for this moment, not just for this season, for good. Careful now. Don't rush past this moment. This is where the room goes quiet and the lie finally stops breathing. You saw it happen. Everyone did. The golden boy, polished, praised, protected, started to crack right in front of them, and the whole crowd froze like a statue caught mid-prayer. They expected gasps. They expected panic. They expected you to look away, to soften, to hesitate. But you didn't even blink. And that's the part that still keeps them up at night. Because what kind of person watches the chosen one fall apart and doesn't flinch? Not a monster, not a hero, something far more dangerous, something evolved. See, they built him to be admired. They wrapped him in applause, padded his mistakes, rewrote history to keep him shining. He was their proof that the system worked, that the script was real, that obedience gets rewarded and pain gets edited out of the final cut. He was their angel, clean hands, clean record, clean story. And then gravity remembered his name. You felt it before it happened. You always do. The microfractures in his voice, the way the confidence started sounding rehearsed, the way his smile lingered a second too long, like it needed permission to exist. You clocked it quietly, without celebration, without pity. Because you know collapse isn't tragic, it's diagnostic. And when it finally happened, when the mask slipped and the room went cold, everyone looked at you. Not because you caused it, but because you didn't react. That's what terrified them. They're used to emotional obedience. They're used to people performing sympathy on cue, outrage on command, shock like a reflex. They wanted tears, whispers, moral theater. You gave them nothing, just stillness, just that calm, unnerving silence that says, I've seen this before, and I survived worse. They couldn't read you. And when they can't read you, they can't control you. You didn't cheer. You didn't judge. You didn't rush in to play savior or executioner. You just stood there, watching the illusion die with surgical calm. That's when it hit them. This wasn't about him collapsing. This was about you not needing him to stay standing. That's power they can't frame as kindness or cruelty. It exists outside their vocabulary. They want saints who bleed on schedule. They want psychopaths they can point at and label. But you live in the space between. The place where an angel learns how to watch without mercy and a demon learns restraint. You've integrated both. That's why your calm looks so violent to them. Because you've already collapsed before. You remember it, even if you don't talk about it. The version of you they celebrated once, or ignored, or used. The version that broke quietly while everyone else kept moving. No audience, no sympathy, no golden boy treatment. You learned early that survival doesn't come from being loved. It comes from being accurate. Accurate about people, accurate about patterns, accurate about how fast admiration turns into hunger when the fall starts. So when his world caved in, you didn't flinch. Not because you're cold, but because you've already done the math. You know what's underneath the polish. You know how fast the crowd switches scripts. You know how fragile crowns are when they're built out of applause. They didn't just watch him fall. They watched you refuse to participate in the ritual. No kneeling, no clapping, no pretending this was shocking. Just that look in your eyes. The one that says, "This is what happens when the spotlight lies." That look rewrote the room. Now they're replaying it in their heads, wondering what you know, wondering what you've seen, wondering how many collapses you've already outlived to stand there that steady. They're asking themselves a question they never wanted to ask. If he was the golden boy, what the hell are you? You're the one who doesn't need the title. You're the one who doesn't need protection. You're the one who learned to evolve instead of perform. While they were investing in image, you were investing in durability. While they were polishing his mask, life was sharpening you. And here's the part they really can't handle. You didn't feel relief when he fell. You felt confirmation. Confirmation that nothing handed to someone survives pressure. Confirmation that pain is the great equalizer. Confirmation that the system always eats its favorites eventually. And confirmation that you're built for aftermath, not applause. They think your silence was mercy, or cruelty, or indifference. It was none of that. It was mastery. Because when you've walked through your own collapse, when you've watched your own illusions burn, you stop being impressed by other people's shine. You stop reacting. You start observing. And observation is where real power lives. Now the room feels different when you walk into it. They're quieter, more careful. They don't know whether you're the warning or the consequence. They just know you didn't flinch when the golden boy shattered, and that means you're not afraid of endings. You're built from them. So let them whisper, let them speculate, let them try to decide whether you're ruthless or enlightened. You don't need to correct them. You don't need to explain yourself. You already said everything with your stillness. You watched their favorite fall apart, and you stood there unmoved. Not because you lack empathy, but because you've transcended illusion, and now they understand something they can't unsee. You're not here to be crowned. You're here to survive what crowns can't. And here's what they still don't understand. Your stillness wasn't passive. It was loaded. It was the quiet of someone who's already mapped every exit while everyone else was memorizing the decor. When he fell, the room didn't just lose a symbol, it lost a compass. They had oriented themselves around him, his approval, his shine, his proximity to favor. When gravity finally collected its debt, they panicked because they realized they never learned how to stand without something golden to orbit. You did. That's why your calm felt obscene to them, almost offensive, like you broke an unspoken rule. You were supposed to be shaken. You were supposed to feel small, witnessing the collapse of someone placed above you. Instead, you looked familiar with it, like collapse was a language you'd already learned fluently. They don't know how many nights trained you for that moment, how many times you watched your own plans dissolve, how many versions of yourself you buried without ceremony. They don't know how many times you had to keep moving while everything you believed in went silent. You weren't raised by applause. You were forged by absence. So when the golden boy cracked, you didn't see tragedy. You saw structure failing under weight it was never meant to carry. And that's the difference. They believed in symbols. You believe in systems. They believed in appearances. You believe in pressure tests. They believed he was special because the room said so. You knew nothing is special until it survives being stripped naked. That's why your eyes didn't widen. That's why your breathing didn't change. That's why you didn't rush in to save or destroy. You were watching the truth surface, and truth doesn't require theatrics. What really scared them wasn't your lack of reaction. It was your timing. You didn't step forward when he was strong. You didn't step back when he was weak. You stayed exactly where you were, centered, unmoved. Like the collapse didn't change your position in the slightest. That's when it hit them. You weren't competing with him. You were never even playing the same game. While he was busy maintaining a role, you were building internal leverage. While he was managing perception, you were mastering endurance. While he was protected by the system, you were learning how to operate without one. That's why when the protection vanished, so did he. And you didn't feel vindicated. You felt unsurprised. Because you know something they don't like admitting out loud. Collapse isn't random. It's scheduled. It's the bill coming due for every shortcut, every unearned pedestal, every truth postponed. And when it arrives, it doesn't care how loved you were 5 minutes ago. You've lived long enough in the dark to know that. That's why your calm wasn't cruel. It was informed. You weren't enjoying his fall. You were recognizing a pattern. The same one that humbles idols, rewrites hierarchies, and exposes how fragile borrowed power really is. Now they're reevaluating you, quietly, nervously. They're replaying the moment in their heads, frame by frame. The way you didn't lean in, the way you didn't lean away, the way your presence didn't change, even as the atmosphere collapsed around him. They're wondering what kind of pressure it takes to create someone who doesn't react to implosions. They don't know whether you're dangerous because you're ruthless or because you're free. And the truth is, it's both. You've learned how to hold compassion without weakness, how to observe without attachment, how to let things end without needing to be the reason. That's a level of psychological autonomy most people never touch. They're too busy chasing approval to notice how enslaved it makes them. You're not enslaved to outcome. That's why outcomes don't own you. And now the room feels unstable in your presence. Conversations stall when you enter. People measure their words. They sense, without being able to explain it, that you're not impressed by hierarchy, that you don't flinch at failure, that you don't worship shine. You're built for aftermath. You're built for the moment after applause fades, after protection is withdrawn, after the crowd looks around and realizes the rules just changed. That's why your silence spoke louder than any reaction ever could. You didn't celebrate his collapse. You outgrew the need to. And here's the layer beneath that, the one they won't admit even to themselves. When you didn't flinch, something inside them shifted position, not emotionally, structurally. Like a load-bearing belief cracked. Because if the golden boy can fall, and you can remain steady, then the hierarchy they trusted isn't real. It's just a stage prop. And stages collapse the moment the audience stops believing. They felt that belief drain out of the room in real time. Up until that moment, they told themselves a comforting story. That success protects you. That being chosen insulates you. That being visible keeps you safe. He was living proof of that myth, until he wasn't. And the myth didn't just fail. It evaporated. You saw that evaporation. You recognized it instantly. That's why your posture didn't change. You weren't witnessing a man fall. You were witnessing a lie die, and lies always scream on the way out. They expected you to react because reaction confirms the lie. Shock says, this wasn't supposed to happen. Sympathy says, this shouldn't have happened. Outrage says, someone broke the rules. You gave them none of that. You gave them acceptance. And acceptance is lethal to illusions, because acceptance says, this was inevitable. That's why they don't know how to place you now. You're not above them. You're not below them. You're outside the grid entirely, and systems hate anything they can't rank. They've started watching you differently, not openly, not dramatically. Quiet surveillance, subtle recalibration. They're tracking your reactions, or rather your refusal to provide them. They're trying to reverse engineer you from the outside, but they can't see the internal work that got you here. They can't see the nights you didn't break publicly. They can't see the losses you metabolized in private. They can't see the identities you shed without applause. They only see the result, someone who doesn't panic when gravity does its job. And that scares them more than rage ever could. Rage is predictable. Rage can be provoked, redirected, framed. Calm can't. Calm means you're not hooked. Calm means you're not chasing their approval or fearing their rejection. Calm means you already paid the price. Most people spend their whole lives avoiding. You paid it early. You learned what it feels like to stand with nothing backing you. No protection, no narrative, no safety net. Just your own nervous system learning how to regulate under pressure. That rewired you. That's why collapse doesn't feel catastrophic anymore. It feels familiar. They don't know that when you watched him fall, a part of you recognized the moment. Not because you wished it on him, but because you've stood in that exact free fall before. You know the sound reality makes when the bottom drops out. You know the silence that follows when the crowd doesn't know whether to clap or run. You've lived there. That's why you didn't feel superior. You felt grounded. You didn't feel powerful. You felt aligned. There's a difference. Superiority needs comparison. Alignment doesn't. Alignment is knowing who you are when the lights go out. And now the lights flickered for everyone to see. They're scrambling to assign meaning to your stillness. Some of them call it cold. Some call it heartless. Some call it dangerous. A few, very few, recognize it for what it actually is, integration. You're not split anymore. Not saint pretending to be soft. Not monster pretending to be controlled. You've fused both sides into something coherent. You can feel empathy without being consumed by it. You can witness destruction without needing to orchestrate it. You can stand near chaos without becoming chaotic. That's mastery. And mastery is invisible until it's contrasted with collapse. The Golden Boy was optimized for praise. You were optimized for reality. That's why when the environment turned hostile, only one of you stayed upright. Not because you're better, but because you're built differently. They're starting to sense that difference now. It's subtle, but it's spreading. The way conversations hesitate when you're nearby. The way people test your reactions with small provocations, just to see if you'll bite. The way authority figures suddenly over-explain themselves around you, like they're trying to preempt a judgment you never voiced. They're uneasy because you don't perform submission or dominance. You don't need to. Your nervous system isn't outsourced to the room. And here's the final truth they'll never say out loud. When you didn't flinch, they realized you'd already survived something worse than his fall. They don't know what it was. They just know it carved you into someone who doesn't worship stability, because you learned how to be stable without it. That's why you don't chase golden status. You know it's fragile. You know it's conditional. You know it collapses the moment it's tested. You don't need to be protected by the system. You already learned how to outlast it. So let them keep replaying the moment. Let them keep wondering what you're capable of. You don't need to announce anything. Your silence already did the damage. They watched their golden boy collapse. and they watched you remain unmoved. That contrast rewired the room forever. And that's where it ends, quietly, without fireworks, without explanation, because the real shift already happened. They don't talk about him anymore, not the way they used to. His name doesn't carry the same weight. The shine faded faster than anyone expected. And every time they remember how fast it happened, they remember you standing there, steady, unmoved. They learned something in that moment they can't unlearn. Collapse doesn't announce itself, and strength doesn't need permission. They learned that admiration is fragile, but composure is permanent. They learned that the most dangerous person in the room isn't the one who causes the fall. It's the one who understands it and keeps breathing normally. That's you. You didn't win by reacting. You didn't dominate by attacking. You didn't rise by stepping on anyone. You transcended by staying still while the illusion died. And now they see it. Too late to undo it. You're not impressed by crowns. You're not shaken by endings. You're not afraid of gravity. They watched their golden boy collapse. And what they really witnessed was this. You were already built for what comes after. And after that realization settles in, after the noise dies and the room pretends to move on, something else starts happening beneath the surface. Something slow, something irreversible. They begin adjusting around you, not consciously, instinctively. People who once spoke freely now choose their words more carefully, not because you threatened them, but because your presence reminds them that performance has an expiration date. They feel exposed around you, like their internal posture is being audited without consent. You don't interrogate them. You don't challenge them. You don't even look at them differently. And that's the worst part, because you're not trying to win their respect. You already know how fragile respect is when it's handed out by crowds. They used to believe collapse was loud, public, humiliating, something that happens to people. Now they understand it's quieter than that. It happens internally first. It happens when belief drains out faster than identity can adjust. It happens when the story you relied on stops working. That's what they watched in him, and that's what they now sense in themselves. Because your calm didn't just expose his weakness, it exposed everyone's dependency on illusion. The room had relied on the golden boy to carry a fantasy, that success equals immunity, that approval equals safety, that being liked equals being untouchable. You shattered that fantasy without lifting a finger. And here's the part no one dares say. Your restraint was more threatening than violence ever could be. Violence would have given them a villain. Emotion would have given them a narrative. Your neutrality gave them nothing to grab onto, just a mirror. And mirrors make people uncomfortable when they're not ready to see themselves. They wonder if you felt something when he fell. They tell themselves you must have. Everyone does. But what they can't accept is that you've learned how to feel without reacting, how to acknowledge without attaching, how to witness without absorbing. That's not coldness. That's emotional sovereignty. You don't outsource your nervous system to chaos anymore. You don't let the room decide how you breathe. You don't let other people's rises or collapses dictate your internal temperature. That independence reads as arrogance to those who still live reactively. But it isn't arrogance, it's graduation. You graduated from needing external stability to feel grounded, from needing comparison to feel real, from needing drama to feel alive. You've already walked through the part of life that strips all of that away. And you didn't disappear, you adapted. That's why when they saw the Golden Boy collapse, they didn't just lose faith in him. They lost faith in the idea that protection lasts forever. They lost faith in the script that promised safety in exchange for compliance. And standing right there was proof that another way exists. You, not shiny, not worshipped, not insulated, but unshaken. They don't know what to do with that kind of presence. You're not trying to climb. You're not trying to burn anything down. You're just there, fully intact, fully conscious, fully capable of watching things end without needing to interfere. That's a level of internal power most people never touch, because it requires surviving the exact thing they spend their lives avoiding. You didn't flinch because you've already made peace with loss. You didn't react because you no longer confuse intensity with importance. You didn't celebrate because you don't need someone else's fall to validate your standing. And now, the hierarchy feels thinner, more fragile, like it could tear if someone leaned on it too hard. They're careful now, careful with you, careful with each other, careful with the stories they tell themselves about who's untouchable. Because somewhere in the back of their minds, a new truth has lodged itself, and it won't leave. If the Golden Boy can collapse, and you can remain centered, then real strength doesn't look like perfection. It looks like someone who has already survived the worst moment of their life, and didn't need to announce it. That's why you don't need the spotlight. That's why endings don't scare you. That's why you stand differently now. They watched their Golden Boy collapse. But what haunts them is this. You were never depending on him staying upright in the first place. You were already built for whatever comes next.